This is going to be an interview with Tom Hayslip. He is another witness from the Florida Turnpike and also for the Blue Van. Hello?
Yeah, this is Tom Hayslip. Is this Lisa?
This is. How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. So, very glad. So, a little about yourself. How'd you get onto this?
Well, I'm actually an investigative journalism student, and so I read Willis's book, Frustrated Witness, and I got in contact with Willis, and then we've kind of been talking, and there's so much to this that I decided I could use this as a thesis for school as well. So, you know, being that I kind of spent a lot of my free time after reading his book delving into it, I thought, you know, I might as well get credit for it. And, you know, so in a way, I'm doing it for that. And, you know, I kind of just stumbled onto it. I really didn't even know the case was solved until I read his book. And then I realized, wow, I don't really know if it was, you know, looked at properly, because I see there was a lot of witnesses that weren't called. And so it just seemed to kind of be something that I wanted to look into as well. So
You're a student?
Yes. So I work and I go to school.
Oh, you work at the school?
No, I work and I go to school. So I go to University of Amherst in Massachusetts. I do their program online, and then I just work full-time at a job.
Oh, okay. Well, a thesis, that mean a doctorate?
No, it's just the master's. So it's like Willis uses the word thesis, and so it's more like it's like a master paper. And so when you go for your master's program, you can have basically up to 30 credits, and so you don't need to take science and all these other classes in order to get the major at this university. So I could do it on like a paper basically, or a research is what it is.
Okay, so you're not looking to get necessarily into investigative journalism. You're just interested in it.
No, I am. I'm pursuing that for school.
Oh, okay. So you would, yeah. What kind of, is that something would be with a newspaper, or who does an investigative journalist work for? TV shows, or?
I kind of would like to be independent, because I've seen the way the media is now, and it seems like the reporting is not as in-depth as it used to be, and I don't know if that's to blame for them trying to keep up with everything now that there's online, and, you know, people are on their phones more, getting social media and stuff like that. So it seems like a lot of the network media isn't as involved in what I would like to do. So I would kind of want to either work independently or maybe for a smaller network or something where it wouldn't be so... I could actually get into the story, because I also listen to podcasts. I don't know if you've heard of those, but a lot of them are long-term investigations that they've run on cases or other projects and stuff. And it's interesting because, you know, a lot of things are quickly swept under or quickly talked about on the media, and I always want to know more. So I don't know if I could be a media anchor. I'd want to know more of the story.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. That's not unlike me for some reason. I probably need to do more of that. How is Willis anyway? I haven't talked to him in a number of years.
Well, he wanted me to tell you, he said hi, and he's doing very well. He's still in Florida, and he still works. I'm not sure what he does, but he does still work. So, but yeah, he's doing really well. So.
Okay. Well, if there's such a thing as a lucky call for a thesis, you probably made it. I say that because this case has bothered me since 1981 a lot, and I have all of my original notes over years of the many times that I've tried to pursue this. So I think I would have some good material for you to do investigating.
I appreciate it.
And right, and I do have Give me some guidance.
I just want you to recall, because obviously you were in the Turnpike state of in the witnesses of the Turnpike, and so I wanted to talk to you about what you recalled from that day you were on the Turnpike, and then kind of go from there.
All right. Well, the backstory is my wife of 54 years now, and I had just gotten. Well, they wouldn't let us adopt them, but we took two boys in that we had known. So
oh, wow.
We had three daughters and lived across the street from them, so we took them in and finished raising them, basically. And part of that was in April, and we were in an attempt to have the boys feel a little normal in our home. I took my young children in. There were 4 teenagers at once, but
oh, geez, yeah.
on trips with me. I had a large landscape contracting business and bought plants from nurseries around the state, and so I had a trip planned, and I even have I'm looking at it now. I have my handwritten notes of where this nursery was. I hadn't been there before, and what I was looking for and all that, and so I had this information, and so I decided to take my 11-year-old son with me. And I had a business van, and we lived in Fort Pierce, and I was very familiar with the Turnpike. I'm a native Floridian of natives. So we were traveling on the Turnpike, and it's about 6:30 in the morning, had just, which is probably 45 minutes from my home, and my son had fallen asleep. It was early in the morning. So in those days, you didn't have Waze or Google Maps, and you had to have maps. And I'd made a little map of where this was, and it was between the seats. And I reached down to pick up the map. I remember this vividly for this reason. You'll know why it stuck in my mind. And I glanced at it, and when I looked back up, I was really close to the side of the road, and this van was in front of me on the side of the road, off the Turnpike. So it startled me. And, I was a little bit careless there getting that map. So
you had looked down, and
when it was, as I passed it, it was continuously moving. And I'm the type person that often stops and helps people. In those days, I had a business radio, but there weren't cell phones. So I decided not to stop because my son was sleeping. But I watched that van, and it never quit moving, and I probably watched it in my rearview mirror for half a mile or more. It was near an underpass, Rattleball Road. I was familiar with the area because I'm from there, and didn't think much about it. And then a few days later, and this is all written in notes. I'm not reading them right now. I'm just going ad lib here. A few days later, the television reported Adam Walshgate, which we already knew about, but they reported that. So I knew they reported that a blue van had been seen at the abduction site, and I remember I thought, I saw a blue van on the Turnpike. Well, within a day or two, the next report was that they had found Adam's head on the Turnpike, and it was within a few hundred yards at the most of where that van was.
Oh, wow.
They thought it had been there a couple of days, and it had been a couple of days. So, I actually got back in my car and drove out, make sure I recalled where it was, and got on the Turnpike and drove there, and sure enough, it was right near where they found his head. So I called the sheriff in St. Lucie County, which is the county I station, and gave me a number, I think, or something. But anyway, the next night, there's something about the van. I described the van, a blue van with a very, very unusual. New vans. I had vans in my business and just that era, and I knew it was a little bit unusual because it had a license plate on the left door with a ladder, stainless ladder that went to the roof. So told them all that, and then the next report, there's something about it I remembered but couldn't recall, and they said it had chrome wheels, and I remembered that it had chrome wheels. So I actually called twice to report that too, and nothing happened. Never heard from anybody, and just to give you an idea, that was 1980.
1981.
81. And I just nobody ever called. So sometime later, and it might have been, I'm sure it was months, may have been over a year, I called my sheriff again that I knew, and I said, his name was Lanny Norwell, I said, Lanny, I've never heard anything about this, and I reported it, and it seemed like it would have been important, that they'd be calling me or something. And he said, well, let me call and find out. And he called me back a day or two later and they said that the blue van had been discounted, the sighting of the blue van.
Wow.
And I thought, well, so what?
Yeah.
The head, right where I saw a suspicious character. So it has bothered me for 38 years. I was 37 then. That the probability of my being there, seeing that right near where they found his head, had to be 1 in a billion.
Right.
So it's always disturbed me, and but there wasn't anything I could do. They didn't have any reports. They just never called. So
right.
In 1989 or 90, they had an article on it in the Fort Lauderdale newspaper, and it mentioned they were running down leads, and it gave Jack Hoffman, who was the detective in charge, his name, and Les Davies, the Adam Walsh Child Resource Center number. So I called them, and wrote out all the notes, and I sent the notes to Hoffman on 4/26/1990, and it had the Tribune and the dates and stuff like that, what I basically told you, and never heard a word.
Wow.
No calls, no nothing. So I actually had not heard much. We had moved in 2002, and I hadn't kept up with any news on it at all. And then in 2007, I saw a van up here in Georgia that reminded me of that. It reminded me so much, I actually tracked down, and it was the right years, but it wasn't the right, it could have been repainted or something.
Right.
Anyway, I had a moment of a recall, and it bothered me, and I messed with that a little bit, and nothing happened with it. So I just forgot about it until 2010 when Willis Morgan called me out of the blue. Never heard of him. And that, I know a lot more about this, having talked to Willis before he wrote his book. And he found my name on a little tiny piece of paper that had recorded a polygraph. And it had my name in polygraph, nothing else. And he tracked me down, thanks to the internet, I guess. And he and I discussed quite a bit about it. I ended up sending him all the information I had. And at that time, he told me about the other 4 witnesses that had seen a blue van. And that's the first time I knew anybody had actually reported it. I just thought it was, I didn't know what to think.
Right.
And 2 of them were, one of them had given a partial tag number to police and never got a call back. And the other one was, I think they were, one of them was a truck driver believe he's since deceased.
Both of them were truck drivers.
They had 4 reports of seeing that van.
Yep.
They had my report of that was right where the head was, and they never called. So I didn't help much, but I did a little bit. Whatever Willis asked me, I sent him, and so he saw the date of my polygraph, which was, according to my note here, 7/19/89. So I assume that's right. And that actually has a side story, so let me finish this first. And then in 2019, May 28th, dated, Lisa Craven calls me out of the blue, writes me, and reminds me of this. So in the meantime, I'd actually asked a man who's writing a book if he would write me a book about this, and I really, the only thing motive I had in it was to show people how victims can sometimes be witnesses. You know, all these years of all these people carrying all this information, never being satisfied that it was resolved, and having to live with that. It's not easy, because you know that that wasn't right.
Right.
And so anyway, I had witnessed another unsolved case. I happened to see a woman get into a truck, and out of that case, I did some reporting and to the authorities, and told them about the Adam Walsh thing. So they came up and gave me a polygraph, and really, in hindsight, I know what he was doing. He was just trying to eliminate me as a suspect. That was it. He didn't care about what I had to say.
Oh, wow.
Until they got to the point where they asked, did you kill Adam Walsh or know anything about it? And I said no. And that was it. But I did ask that they hypnotize me. And I don't have the date of that. I think I had asked them ahead of time, and they did it at the same time, and it was somewhere within an hour, maybe 30 minutes of where we lived. I just don't remember where it was, but it wasn't. It was a private, somebody who does that sort of thing, probably for either Indian River County or St. Lucie County, I don't know. And during that polygraph, I remembered, could visualize, see everything. I could not see the numbers because it had been so long. But I did say it's either Brevard or Broward County, and he was abducted in Broward County, and it was. I'd never been hypnotized. I didn't even believe in hypnosis till then, but it does really work. And I was very, very agitated because I couldn't remember it. And the operator told me that was in 25% of the cases, people like me, when you shut your eyes, you don't see pictures. You just have to reconstruct them with your brain. Some people see, most 75% see pictures. And he said, if you'd have seen, you're in the 75%, you probably could have told me the tag number. And so that just irritated me more, that all those years had gone by, that I might have been helpful, and nobody bothered to even make a phone call. I initiated everything. Nobody ever called, followed up, nothing.
Right.
And so that's my story. I've read all the books, including Willis Morgan's. When I laid his book down, I thought, or the one that irritated me the most was the guy that closed the case. And I thought, if you had to spend as much time chasing a blue van, you probably would have solved it as you spent trying to say that Otis O'Toole committed the murder when he didn't. And I think, quite honestly, Willis is probably absolutely right that it was Dahmer. It makes sense. He dismembered his victims, and this boy was dismembered. And so, wow. I'm sorry I did all that talking. I usually talk a little and listen a little, but
No, you're fine. My job is to listen, so it's okay for you to talk this time. When you drove past the blue van now, I just wanted to go over a few things real quick. I just had some questions about what you said. I didn't want to interrupt you, though. When you were driving down the turnpike, the blue van, so how I understood it is you had a map in between the seats, and you kind of looked down a little bit, and when you looked up, you may have veered off a little bit to the side of the road, like maybe in the pull-off lane.
Yeah, like the little warning lane, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And at the time you looked up, you realized not only were you in that lane, but there was a van in that lane, or was the van in the lane in front of you?
It was in front of me quite a little bit of distance. I mean, it might have been 400 or 500 feet, but at turnpike speeds.
Sure.
I remember it because it startled me that I was being a little careless getting that map. And and he not only was he on that little apron, he was kind of off the apron, like he was over more toward the canal. I'm not sure that I think he was totally on the grass. There used to be, particularly in those days, there was a little bit more. It's a little more overgrown now, maybe. I don't know. It depends on how they maintain it. But he was close enough where he's probably throwing body parts in the canal, would be my guess.
Or he was off the highway, right? He wasn't really on the highway, so to speak, as much as he was.
No, he wasn't in a travel lane. And he was suspicious. Well, in hindsight, he was suspiciously further off. I thought he was going to pull all the way off on the grass to be out of the way and need help. And I was just watching, and it was early in the morning. I thought, well, somebody will help him because I had my boy there, and I didn't really want to try to go back or anything.
Was it daylight enough or light enough? Were you able to see what the person driving looked like?
It should have been right about 6:30. I could not see a person. I think it had tinted windows. I remember the color, and so actually I just remembered, I've carried since 2016, I think it is. I saw a movie with the very same van about that year, blue, with a ladder over it, and I took a picture of it on the TV and put it on my phone just to remind me to pray for Adam Walsh and his dad and all those struggles I'm sure they've had. And I still have that. I'll send that to you too if you want. It's very close to what after all these years, I remember seeing. Now I don't know.
Yeah, that would be great if you have that and a picture of yourself from that time era. That would be great if you could send me both of those, because then I could use that too, because it's more credibility with the visuals as well. But yeah, no, you bring up a good point, and Willis brought that up in his book too, and I kind of am gathering that because I've actually spoke with those truck drivers, Dennis and Clifton. And
have you really?
Yeah, I've actually spoke with quite a few people. Because Willis, basically what I'm kind of trying to bring his book to life in a way as an outsider, because I'm not involved, so sometimes people look at it differently, I think, when you're involved and when you're not. And I really have nothing to gain from this. Neither does Willis, and neither do you, and none of these people do. And the only person I felt that gained anything were the ones that closed it. But and so.
And Willis, I understand from just filling in the blank. I think he spent a lot of his personal money and time, and
he did
try to make it right. He really, really tried hard.
He did. He's had lawsuits and everything.
I'll send this to you, but I have a note here. It says 9-year-old black Verner Jones from Hallandale. He might have been one that saw the van. Grandfather, lawman, I can't tell. Lawman, police officer, wrote John Walsh, gave his Hallandale police. That's someone that tried to do something. Bill Bowen.
Yep, I talked to Bill. Vernon Jones was one of the little boys that was at the department store with Adam, and he was there because his grandfather they did lawn service, and he went to the lawn department. Vernon played video games that day or night on the TV when the abduction came on. His grandma said, "You were there. Did you remember seeing this boy?" And he said, "Yeah." So the next day they went to the police department, and because his grandfather and him are black, the police looked at him and said, "Boy, we don't have time for this," meaning his grandfather called him boy and spit tobacco on his shoe, and they never took his statement. So then years later, Vernon wrote the letter to America's Most Wanted, and John said, "You need to call this guy," and they finally did, I think like in 2009 or something, or I don't know. It was late, very late.
Yeah, then Bill Bowen says Parsons got a partial tag to police. In 2 days we'll call back. Never. Let's see. CB money to no call. Sawman Wynell. Then a Philip Loon or Lure Sears service counter.
Yep.
Blue van blocking facing wrong way. Past guy screaming. Eugene Machado, is that the driver? Almost hit the van.
Yeah, he's one of the drivers that was coming with his wife, I believe, and they intersected the van as it was leaving, and it like almost clipped him.
Okay. I never knew all that until this day. I made these notes when I was talking to him, so.
Oh, yeah, there's lots of people that saw the blue van. There's also Timothy Pottenberg, who was 10 years old, and he was crossing the street to get to Sears with his grandma, and the van like screeched out and almost hit them, so he turned around and watched the van turn the corner, which basically was when they moved the van from the west side, or from the north to the west side. And
the thing is, had they contacted any of us, we could have compared, because it could be, I remember a composite of vans that I was in my brain that wouldn't be perfectly accurate, but between all of them they'd have had a much better chance. And I'll tell you, there's not that many of those era vans that had I think they're Fords, that had the license plate on the left rear door, if I'm remembering that correctly. But that was my memory. It was over the left, and the ladder went across it. So.
Well, the next person I'm talking to is a man named Gino, and he actually is. He used to deliver pizzas for Mr. Pizza, and he drove that blue van. So I'm going to talk to him, and that's good that I talked to you, because you're the first person to be specific about the left license plate in the back, which, I know you're going off of the best of your memory, and you're not solidified 1,000%, but that stands out to you. But that would be something he would know or more about than anybody, because he's familiar with the van, and nobody ever talked to him.
Earlier, maybe I wasn't totally right, but. And I'll send you this picture, because the one I'll send you doesn't have the chrome, and it was actually in a movie. I took a picture of it off a movie, but it was the only one I've ever seen that hit that mark. Now I have since seen some, and believe me, every van I see, my wife will say amen to this. I just notice. I just look. It's just I've always looked for one that. So
yeah,
I'll text that to you. I think I've got it on my camera on my phone. Now I didn't see that until 2016, but it's the only one I've ever seen that looked like what I tried to describe.
Right, and those weren't very common back then either. So it's kind of like hard to see, and then of course you see it again and you know it.
Yeah.
And you're okay with me using your statements if I have any reason to, and quote you or anything like that if I record it? Do you mind if I record it? I did record it for my notes, but I do not have to use it for broadcast. I don't have a platform like that, but I use it for my notes for my class taking.
Yeah. Have you recorded it yet, or are you asking? Have you been recording?
I have, but I'm sorry. I didn't say anything in the beginning. I'm sorry. Do you mind if I record it? I can delete it if you do.
No, I don't mind if you record it. I'm going to send here in a minute the original. Because it's in a lot of this is writing. I've dated it and given you each year with a couple of things. I'll send that to you in the picture.
Okay.
I guess I don't know. Should not knowing what you're going to do with it, I guess might make a difference. But is there anything legality-wise I should know about authorizing you to do this? It become your property, or you just...
Oh, no. What I would do if I ever do broadcast or if I do print or anything like that, I would ask your permission first. Because what I'm doing it for right now is research. And so Will is a friend of mine, and I'm not working, against anybody. He's working with me and helping me with this so I get a good grade in class. And then obviously I think, like you and everybody else I've talked to, I think this story needs to be heard. So in the future, if I plan to do anything with it, I would ask your permission. So if I decide to write a book, if I ever wrote a book, I wouldn't come at the same approach. I wouldn't use anything you said differently. I would use your word verbatim. So that's why I'm asking if I had permission from you to do that. But if I ever write anything, I would send it to you first for your approval, and then I would release it. So I would never use your statement in a book and then not have you see it, because I've seen that done before, and I don't agree with that. But my whole, do you know who Carl Bernstein is from the Washington Post?
I've seen the name, but no, I don't.
He helped bring down Watergate.
Okay.
So he's all about the truth and investigating it and bringing it to the public eye if it needs to be, but in an appropriate and respectful manner. So I'm not about slandering or, anything like that. So I wouldn't use your words or your statements distastefully. If anything, it would be for pursuit of the truth and for justice for Adam. And it wouldn't be to slander the Hollywood Police Department. It would be to give the public opinion, the opportunity to say, maybe this wasn't done right.
Yeah. Do you know anything about John and, I'm trying to remember his wife's name.
Reve.
Still living?
Yeah, they're both living. Yeah, it's Reve, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Yeah, do they know anything about, I've always, at one point I turned from being really upset that they didn't know the truth to thinking if they've satisfied it in their own minds, then I need to be satisfied with that. I believe if the Lord's given them the contentment that they need and understanding that, then I didn't want to do anything bringing up something to undo that, place it if they're there, but not knowing, I have no idea. So I do have a little bit of concern about, I guess I would just be careful and sensitive to them in this, because, it's their child that somehow they have, if they've resolved that they think it was, when I read that book, I told my wife, I said, well, if John and his wife feel like that explains it to them and they can close that out and have some closure, then I'll just have to live with it.
Right. No, I understand. I've seen actually mixed things. I've seen John and Reve in the beginning, I think, in 2008 when it was closed. They were accepting of it and everything. But actually, John came and spoke at an insurance conference that my best friend went to. And this was about 3-4 years ago. And he said his son's case is still unsolved. And he's said in a couple of different media outlets too. So I'm not really sure where they stand with it. And, of course, I wouldn't want to, open that wound for them either. I get it. I wouldn't know what to do in that position either, if I was happy with it or not, and so it could be information I sit on until maybe they're no longer, here to hear it, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't know how to do it without stepping on toes, but I would try not to do that. I mean, my whole thing is when you're...
Well, I don't know whether you're a believer or not, but I am, and I know that there are many, many things in life that are not explained. We don't have the ability to understand everything and know everything, even though we desire to. And so sometimes I think, the Lord just allows us to have a peace and contentment about things that aren't ours to know for sure. So I want to honor that in dealing with them. I had an opportunity probably to see him directly. He actually had a home near where we did a lot of work, and in a little private community. And all those years, I thought, well, I actually called his show several times, and they sent me back down to Hollywood Police, as they should. Never let me speak to him or anybody about it. So
you called the show saying you were...
keep that in mind. That would be that'd be the only reason. If I said I didn't want to be part of something, that might be the only reason, if I thought we were causing any harm to them, because after all these years, they...
Oh, I understand.
Particularly if you can't prove who did it. You have both of them that are supposed supposedly did it are dead, O'Toole and Daimler, then, what's the use of knowing
Right.
that police messed it up? But they definitely did. I mean, it wasn't done right.
Right. No, yeah, that's true. So
if they do, if the good comes out of it, that people realize whoever's investigating or telling the truth, as you say, about something, witnesses may not always be right, but they do deserve some kind of response.
right.
And not to get it is unfair. It's inconsiderate of another human being.
Right. And it also makes you feel that burden of guilt if you could have done something different in the investigation.
Yep, because I thought I was doing plenty, but, when you don't have information, you don't know how much further to push it. And, but anyway, okay.
Well, I appreciate it.
I hope some good comes out of it.
Me too. So.
Well, I'll send you, I'm going to email you this information and send you the picture via text. Do you, will you have periodic updates for me or anything, what you're doing, or how I'm not sure I expect anything. But.
Yeah, definitely. I'm working on it probably over the summer because I've talked to about 10 people now, and I have maybe 5-6 more to go. So, and I still have to do a lot more research and such before putting it together. So, but it would be towards the end of summer if I had anything ready or, for you. But like I said, I'm just talking to everybody, and then I'm using it like your part, because if you're part of the Turnpike, your part would be with Dennis and Clifton, because the other person, Richard King, has passed away, so I can't use him. I mean, I can use his statement from the case file, but I can't talk to him. So
did you find out anything else on my name or anything on the case file? Because Willis said he could hardly, just one little note, there wasn't hardly anything there. He didn't even know if he had the right person when he called me.
The only other thing I found was what you said, was your notes about the hypnosis, and then your polygraph, and what he said with you called into there's a part in there from you calling into the Indian River Police Department.
So they have it all, they just didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's almost like pieced together, and I think kind of what happened is, it's a part of it is, I don't know how many times they collaborated and went over all of this stuff, because if they did, they would see 4 or 5 people called saying the same thing within a period of 2 days,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's hard to say how it was because I wasn't there. But I've heard things like John Walsh was even answering phone calls. So it was really inapt as far as the police department was too small to handle the volume and just the case in general. And then it went from there. It just was disorganized.
They've even had some trouble recently. They still haven't gotten much better.
Oh, really? Okay, well.
Wasn't that school issue down there in that same department? I think it is. I think it's Broward County that had the...
you're right. I think so.
The active shooter there that... Oh, golly, what all... I can't remember now. There have been so many of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, Broward County has a reputation altogether.
Yeah, they do.
As far as the police department.
There, so, pardon the inconsiderate comment, but you don't sound like a college-age student, so...
Oh, no, I'm 40. I figured out what I want to be when I grew up kind of thing. So I'm going back to it because,
From that area up there?
No, actually, I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm from Milwaukee. So the interest in Dahmer was kind of, already there. And I've been in New York now for 9 years, and so we have 4 kids, and I decided to go back to school and finish my degree. And in doing that, it's been challenging, but it hasn't been as hard, because I think when I was younger, I wasn't taking things as seriously.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we have 5 kids, 2 boys and 3 biological girls who are near us up here, which is good. And our boys are in Kentucky and all